Thank you all for tuning in. Now, I can't promise you the outcome that you're gonna get from watching this, but what I can tell you, if you apply what you're about to learn, this will change your financial future. If you're here, it's probably because you're ready for change. And what you're gonna learn in tonight's training will do just that. So if taking back control of your money isn't enough to keep you glued to this screen for the next 90 minutes, I think it's time to reassess your priorities. And tonight, we've got a special guest. My good friend Brian is gonna be doing the training, and here's what you can expect to learn. Number one, you're gonna learn how to take back control of your money. And you're gonna do that by learning how to be the bank. Number two, you're gonna learn how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses. And you can do that without working harder, without working longer, and without taking on any additional risk. And number three, you're gonna learn how to get all the money back for every single car you will ever buy, drive, and own. That's exactly what you're gonna learn in tonight's training, so get ready, get set, let's go.
Take back control.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday? All right, hey everybody, Brian Foucher, and welcome to Take Back Control Tuesday and the Money Multiplier presentation. So let's go ahead and dive on into it. So before we get into this, I have a question for everybody here. What in life should you control? So use that chat box, guys. What are some things, and if you've seen our presentation before, you probably know what these are, but what are some things in life that you should control or want to control? Everything you can? Yep, I agree with that one. Everything you can. Your life, yep, of course, we want to control our lives. Now, there's three things that we typically want to control in life that allows us to live the life that we want. And Curtis hit it right there for one of them. So one of those things that we want to control is money, right? We want to control money because too often we give control away of money. Time. So you guys said time, right? And time is the second one. So if you want to control time, which for me, by the way, my biggest thing that I want to control in my life is my time. Money, yeah, but for me, it's time. I love it when I'm able to go travel and do things and still live my life and run my businesses, but I control my time. That's one of the biggest things. And I came from the corporate America, that world. Man, I had some very, very massive events in my life that made me realize I don't control my money and I don't control my time. So those are kind of two big things right there. But what's the one thing that you want to even control before these two things? Now, somebody mentioned it up there. Someone said your habits. That actually is true. So the last thing that I look at of the three things is your mindset, your mind. Because if you don't have the right mindset or the right money mindset, as I would call it, around money, can you control money? Well, no. If you don't have the right mindset around, managing time, controlling time, can you control your time? Well, no. So if you can control your mindset first, then control money, eventually you can control time, right? And so Alvin said, yes, your beliefs, limiting beliefs, your subconscious programming. I'm very big into that kind of stuff. I've coached it, taught it, I'm a student of that kind of stuff. So it's made a massive impact in my life. But yeah, so these are the three things that we want to control. Now, as we get into this presentation, we're talking about the infinite banking concept, which is what we're going to be talking about. Mindset is the first one we're going to look at, but infinite banking or the money multiplier method allows you to control your money so you can control your time. So let's go ahead and dive on into this. Now, I want to share this quote. You guys have probably seen this before. It's by Will Rogers, and it says, "The problem in America isn't so much what people don't know, it's what people think they know that just isn't so." And now why is that? It's because we've been taught certain things in life, especially around money and how it works, that just are not true. Because we don't have any, good or bad, right or wrong beliefs around money when we're younger, but our influences around us, think of family, friends, the government, right? Educational system, employers, all teach us things around money. It's one of the reasons why so many people leverage their life. So what do I mean by that? We get massively into debt to live this life, but we're using debt to do that. And that's not really the right way to do it if you want to have wealth. And so that's part of what I want to make sure that we do in this presentation is keep that open mind. As we go through this, keep an open mind about money and those kinds of things. All right. Now, I want you to imagine this. Imagine that you have a room full of 18-year-olds, 100 18-year-old kids, if you want to call them that, right? And here's the thing. If you put all of those kids in this room and you ask every single last one of them, where are they going to be at retirement age? What do you think they're going to say? Well, they're going to say, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be successful. Maybe I'm going to be even a billionaire, whatever it is, right? But here's the truth of it. If you fast forward to retirement age for those 100 individuals, only 5 of them, 5%, 5 out of 100 are going to be financially secure in retirement. And that is crazy. When we live in America, Canada, these countries that are very, very wealthy by a lot of other measurements, only 5% of us of the population is going to be financially secure. That is insane. That's crazy to me. Now, one of the big reasons why is mindset, right? But do you want to be one of those 5 people or one of the 95? So that's a question for you. Use the chat box. Put a 1 if you want to be one of the 5%. Would you want to be one of the 5% that is financially secure in retirement? Okay. Hopefully we're saying number 1, right? Yes, we're saying yes. We want to be one of those 5%. Okay. So how do we become one of those 5% is what we're going to be talking about through this presentation. So once again, keep that open mind because I am going to challenge the way you think around money and way you think around controlling time and all that kind of stuff. All right. Now, what I just said though, what's crazy? That comes from the Social Security Administration. Like I didn't make that number up. It's actually one of their statistics. So yeah, so 5% of people are financially secure. Now, by the way, I did not say financially free or financially wealthy. I said secure, which means they're able to, pay their bills in retirement age and have that kind of cash flow. I'm not even talking, wealthy. So yeah, so we definitely want to look at being one of those 5%, but also one of the 1%. Right. Now, a quick background on myself. So I did go to school. I went to college. I went to Washington State University. Go Cougars, if you guys know what that is. Got a degree in construction management because that's what I was taught to do. That's what I thought. And so I went through my own life the hard way, as I call it. The hard way was this. I was raised in a lower income, great family though. But I remember we didn't have a lot of heat in the winter time. I remember going and starting fires in the fireplace in the mornings to get warm and all that kind of stuff. But that's how I was raised. But I was told or taught or influenced to follow that traditional path in life, right? Go to school, get a job, right? Save into a 401k. I had a house at one point. I had, the mortgage. I had the cars with the loans on them. I had I had the white picket fence, so to speak. I had kids, all that kind of stuff, a 401k. And yet I was being told this was the American dream. This is what I was doing, but I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was drowning in debt, and I was not happy with what I was doing. I was working my butt off, in a job that I didn't really enjoy. And so suddenly I remember this one event. I was in a doctor's office and I picked up this financial magazine and it said, hey, there was this article inside there and it was talking about millionaires. And it said that the average millionaire knows their net worth, but the middle class who aren't millionaires don't know it usually. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Which one am I? I'm not the one that knows my net worth. I didn't know what it was. So that's the piece of paper. I've lost it since then, by the way, but I took a picture of it a long time ago where I did the math and I found out I was worth a negative amount of money after working for about 11 years in that industry. And I did the math even more, realized that moving forward, I would be worth even more or even less over time. So I was like, what is going on? This makes no sense. How can I even survive up until retirement and into retirement doing what I'm doing? And then I had a pretty massive event in my life that really kind of set me on fire, I guess. And it was my grandfather. He was my idol. We all have people in those lives we look up to. And he was a football coach and a coach at the local high school, taught my dad taught my brother. And he was just my idol. Everybody loved this guy. And he worked really hard up until his 60s, right up to retirement age. And then he was very excited about retirement. He was going to buy this motorhome with his wife, my grandmother, and they were going to travel around the country, go to their grandkids' sporting events. They did that. It was cool. He retired, bought the motorhome, traveled for about a year and a half, and then he got massively sick. He got Parkinson's aggressively. He got leukemia and some other things and ended up passing away. I mean, it was like not even 5 years after he retired. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I go, that sucks. He lived for that and couldn't enjoy it. So it kind of set me on a journey to really learn how the wealthy do things differently. How can I live my life today and also down the road and not just, be looking forward to retirement only. So that's what I did. So I left my job. I got into real estate, started becoming an investor, learning how money worked. It was a up and down journey, I'll be honest, but I've done some pretty fun things. And I just want to share some of these things just because anybody can say anything on the internet, right? So this is a business I acquired back in 2016, somewhere around there, been around for a bit longer than that. And this business in COVID, by the way, 2021, did a little over $2 million in revenue. And I've owned multiple businesses. I own a golf ball business. I've done a lot of real estate investing, a lot of things. But through this journey, I've had a lot of fun experiences. Remember controlling time? So I love to control time because it allows me to have a lot of experiences in life. That's what I'm about. I'm about experiences. And this is a lot of stuff I've done right there. I love cars, if you guys can't tell. I love to travel and do things with my family. But I came across this concept that we're going to be talking about in this presentation on that journey. And I loved it. I fell in love with it. I started learning about it. I started teaching it. In fact, I was invited to speak on stages in front of other groups about this concept and really sharing, my methods and my strategies that you're going to be hearing about on this presentation. So it's been a pretty fun journey. I definitely recommend taking that first step if you guys are looking to do something different in life, because man, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do. All right. Now I want you to understand one thing here. Now, what we're going to be talking about, the infinite banking concept, is not a new concept. It's been around for a very long time. We're talking about hundreds of years. So it's not a new concept. And who else has been using this, or who else talks about it? Well, Rich Dad Poor Dad, author Robert Kiyosaki. I work with a lot of his advisors. They all understand and use this concept. He talks about it in his book, A Second Chance. That's a great book, by the way. This guy, Mr. Tony Robbins. I've been to a lot of his events. I've worked with a lot of his advisors and coaches, by the way. I've been coached by one of his coaches. And he talks about it in his book, Money Master the Game. They talk about this concept as a great way to build wealth and generational wealth. Then, of course, there is Becoming Your Own Banker, Unlock the Infinite Banking Concept by R. Nelson Nash. Nash is the individual that really popularized this concept years ago and really brought it to the masses, so to speak. Then, of course, there is one of my mentors, Chris Naugle, and Brent Kessler as well. They talk about this concept in Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. If you guys want that book, by the way, just send me a message. I'll put my email address in the chat box here later on. If you want, I think I have that one as an ebook and a couple other ones. I'll give a link to you if you want to download those and read them. And then, of course, the Private Money Guide by Chris Naugle, which is how to use this concept with real estate lending and investing to build wealth. So recommend take a snapshot of this if you want. These are a lot of good books I do recommend checking out and reading. Now, who has used this concept through history? Well, Jim Harbaugh, I say his name, they use this with the college to compensate him. So this concept is very versatile. So they used it to allow him to have cash-free or tax-free cash in retirement, not cash-free, tax-free money in retirement by using this concept. This guy, now there's a lot of stuff going on with this guy right now. You may have heard about him. He probably doesn't know who he is or where he is right now. His name is Joe Biden, President Joe Biden. He actually has 6 of these policies in place for generational wealth. Okay. He had to disclose that. Disneyland. So Walt Disney, this is really cool. So he wanted to start Disneyland years ago. I think it was back in the 30s, maybe. And he didn't have any financing, and he couldn't get bank financing. Okay. He couldn't get the bank financing. And what he ended up doing was using a infinite banking policy, like what we're talking about here, to get it started. So he borrowed, and we're going to talk about this, he borrowed from it and started Disneyland. Now, if we didn't have this concept, or he didn't have it, Disneyland and Disney World may not exist. That is pretty cool, in my opinion. And by the way, guys, I just put my email in the chat box right there. So it's brian@chrisnaugle.com. Go ahead and send me an email, and then I'll send you those books, the digital versions of some of them. It's not all the books there, but it's like I think it's 2 or 3 of them. So yeah, go ahead and send me an email, and I'll get that over to you. All right, who else has used this? So McDonald's, we've all heard of McDonald's. Now there's a whole story behind how McDonald's got taken over by Ray Kroc and et cetera, et cetera. But Ray Kroc is the one who really popularized this concept, used this concept with McDonald's. So he used this to pay for the employees, the salaries for the first handful of years to get McDonald's going. So without this concept, McDonald's might not exist. It's pretty crazy right there. Okay. The Pampered Chef, she used 3,000 from this kind of a concept to start Pampered Chef. And then, of course, Warren Buffett took it over for $1.5 billion. Gotta love that. Yeah. And then last one I'll mention here is that a lot of families, the JPs, the Morgans, the Chases, Vanderbilts, they all use this for a lot of reasons, but generational wealth is one of the biggest ones. So let me go back real quick. Guys, take a snapshot of that. I'm going to leave it up here for about 10 seconds. If you guys want to take a snapshot, screenshot, something like that of this, there you go. Yeah, and then if you want to grab my email and send me something, yeah, we'll get it set up for you. Yeah, Kurt Warner. Yeah, that's cool to hear that, Dan. Yeah, a lot of people have set themselves up for life with this, and you don't even know it because it's behind the scenes. All right, so let's kind of talk about what infinite banking will do for you. Why do we want to know about infinite banking and what it can do? So number one, so when you have this concept in place, it creates guaranteed generational wealth day one and tax free. So if you're going to pass on, if you have $100,000 today, it's going to be passed on to your family, that's fine. With this concept, that $100,000 could be multiplied by 4 or 5 times and then passed on tax-free guaranteed. So that's a really cool, powerful concept that this does for you. It also allows your money to grow uninterrupted, compounded for the rest of your life with guarantees. So let me ask you a question here. Use that chat box. Do you guys like guarantees when it comes to your money? You want to have guarantees around your money in your life. Does that sound like something that you'd want to have? Like, give me one in the chat box, a yes, a why, something like that. Because guarantees around money is something that a lot of us don't have, right? So who wants to have guarantees around your money? I do, right? And so the wealthy do want to have that as well. That's why they do this concept. So yes, of course, we want to have guarantees. We want to have that certainty that our money is going to be there when we need it, and also all that kind of stuff. Additionally, what infinite banking does is it takes control of your money away from the big banks and Wall Street and puts that control into your hands. And when you think about how money is manipulated, how the government manipulates it, banks, the treasury, all those big corporations, they manipulate money, and we give our money to them. Think of like a 401k, mutual funds, a bank loans. We give our money to them, and then they control it. So if we want to make sure that we control, remember we talked about control at the beginning, controlling your money, infinite banking allows you to do that. It protects your money from lawsuits, bankruptcies, divorce, and creditors in most states, by the way. In most states, it does that. So it's a protected asset. So think about your 401k, your IRA cash, your cash in the bank. It's not protected in most situations. With this, it is protected. It is safe. There's a lot of people, famous people, that have had a lot of bad things happen to them, but for some reason, they still live a pretty good life. I know for a fact some of them had this concept in place, which allowed their money to be safe. So I know that's happened before. But it also allows you to be the bank for things that you may normally use a bank for. So think of things like real estate investing, college for your kids, cars, homes, investments, retirement. So it allows you to be the bank instead of using a bank for those kinds of things while still having all of the benefits listed above. In most situations, when you're putting your money into an investment or putting it into the bank, you're only getting one thing at a time. So think of all the things on this page right here. You're getting all of these things at the same time, exact same time, with the infinite banking concept. So that is why it's a bit different, is because you can do this and this, not this or this. It's all of it at the same time. All right. So as I said, go ahead, if you want to take notes, that's fine. If you want to use the Q&A box or the chat box, but yeah, take notes, and then of course, ask questions as well. Now, this is a pretty funny thing, and some of you have seen this. It's a really funny video, but here's a question for you. Who learns quickly? Well, kids do. So back when you were a kid, maybe you learned to ride a bike. Now, you didn't know how to ride a bike, but once you got on it, you got familiar with it, you can ride that bike. And the fun thing is that once if you don't ride a bike for many, many, many years, you can hop on that bike and typically still ride it. That makes sense? So Robert, you asked a question about, can you go back? It's tax-free. So yes, the benefits of infinite banking is tax-free. There's a lot of different parts of it that are tax-free. We'll get into it here in a little bit in some of the slides, but yeah, there are a lot of tax-free benefits to it after the policy is in place. So yeah, we'll get into some of that. Now, when you look at a bicycle, this is the mindset thing. This is what I want you to understand about when it comes to money. So if you hop on a bicycle and you turn the handlebars to the left, the bike goes left. If you turn it to the right, it goes to the right. But what would happen if you got on the bike and you started to pedal and you turned the handlebars to the left and the tire went to the right? And so there's this video on, I think it's on YouTube. You can go Google it after this presentation. It's called The Backwards Bicycle. It is a funny video because the guy that gets on it in some of the videos, they try to ride it and they immediately fall over. But here's the thing. After practice and practice and practicing, eventually they can ride the backwards bicycle. So they learned a new way to ride a bicycle. Yet what happens if they try to go back to the original bicycle and try to ride the original one? Suddenly they cannot ride the original one, right? So they learned a new way, but they can't go back. So what we're going to be talking about here, the infinite banking concept, is the same way. You have a certain way of thinking about money, but I'm going to show you the backwards bicycle way of money. And so once you see how this works, you've kind of unlocked how infinite banking works, it's very hard for a lot of people to go back to the original way of thinking about money. All right. Okay. So Lillian, yeah. So yeah, at the end, if you want, we can go back and look at the slide with the books on it. And then income free if used correctly. Correct. Yes. Yeah, James, correct. It has to be used correctly. Okay. Now let's kind of think about why more people aren't successful. Remember the 5% and 95 that are not successful in retirement. So here's the mysteries around money. So what are the things that kill wealth? Well, one is taxes. Taxes, I'm more than happy to pay taxes, but I like to pay less a lot more, right? So taxes kill wealth. Inflation. Inflation is inflating of the money supply. Banks, the government printing money, that causes inflation, but it kills wealth. Volatility, markets go up, markets go down. Volatility can really kill wealth because you don't know what's going to happen to your investment, your money down the road. Interest. So when you look at the money going out of your household every month, every year, if you've got a whole bunch going to interest, that's money that you no longer have and no longer control. It's no longer in your world. Now, also mindset. How does mindset affect money? Well, here's how. Well, one, following the status quo, trying to always be, have more things and leverage and get into debt. Fear. Fear is a very big thing when it comes to money because people will actually sometimes work harder to not lose $1 than they will to gain $10. It's a really weird mindset thing, but fear is a big one. Life in general. And then, of course, what we're taught really influences us in our lives. And so once we're aware, though, you can start to reteach or reprogram yourself around money. Let's talk about what is the definition of money. So the definition of money is just a means of exchange. Okay, that's all it is. If it was seashells, that's fine. It's US dollars today, that's fine too. But it's just a means of exchange, exchanging something for value. Next up, what company uses compound interest? Do banks use compound interest? Well, the answer is no, they don't. They charge you interest, but they don't use it themselves the way that we're talking about. Because if you write your name on a dollar bill or $100 bill and give it to the teller at the bank, they don't just put that in the back vault with your name on it in a box, right? They take that money and they put it into motion. They put it in, they make it work for them. So once again, we want to earn compound, but most businesses don't do that. Are your dollars worth more today or in the future? I think we kind of know what that is, the answer to that, right? So today, if you went to go buy a candy bar with a $1 bill, you'd have a hard time finding one that you can buy for $1. But 20 years ago, you could probably buy 2 or 3 with a dollar bill, right? So our dollars are worth more today than they are down the road. That's a very big thing to understand around money, is that what you have today in your hands is worth more right now than it will be down the road. And then will taxes go up or down? I know it's kind of a goofy question, but they typically are going to go up. Yeah. So Alvin says, I remember when candy bars were a nickel. I don't think I remember that, but I mean, yeah, they used to be pretty cheap, but man, not anymore. Even Costco, they're not that cheap. You got to buy 100 at a time though. But yeah, taxes are going to go up or down, and we don't control taxes. Like we don't control that. And so that's a weird thing around a 401k. So I'll mention that in a moment. So taxes are going to go up. Now I want you to think about this concept right here. Would you go buy bread and buy milk and then wait to eat it, to wait to drink it? Right? No, of course we would not. We would not wait to do that. You would not take a loaf of bread, put it into the freezer, and then 20 years later, open the freezer. Now there's 2 loaves of bread, but we're not going to want to eat them because they've been sitting there for 20 years. They're going to taste like crap, to be honest. They're going to be all freezer burned. So we don't do that. But here's the thing. We do things with money that we would not do with things that money buys. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so what do you know about your retirement account? So think about a 401k or an IRA. With those things, you're putting strong dollars into those accounts for weaker dollars down the road. Like that's a weird thing to think about because you're deferring taxes. Well, guess what? Are you going to pay more in taxes today or down the road? Well, taxes go up. And typically in retirement age, you don't have more deductions, you have less deductions. So you pay more taxes potentially. So a 401k, things like that, actually takes strong dollars, locks them in a vault that you can't touch, and then gives you weaker dollars down the road. It's weird that we do that. We would not do that with a car, by the way. So would you go buy a car for cash, then go put it into your garage for 5 or 10 years and never drive it, and then drive it after 5 years is up? No, of course not. We would drive it right away. So if you have dollars coming into your home, your house, your life right now, do you want to use those dollars today? Absolutely. So with infinite banking, you can do both though, by the way. You do both. You can have it there for the future and also use it today. So that's one thing about the mindset we want to start looking at. All right. Now, by the way, I probably just threw quite a lot of stuff at you, but once again, seriously think about what you do with your money, because we've always just been taught to accept, that traditional way of thinking about money. The money comes in, you pay your bills, whatever's left over is yours. But we're going to talk about really what you do first with your money, because that is extremely important. And this is really going to illustrate what I'm talking about right here. Okay, so how does your money flow? So let's say that you want to buy a car. The car is $25,000, all right? Okay, so you want to buy a car for $25,000. Now, don't get hung up on the price. I know they're probably a lot more today, but let's say it's $25,000. Now, you have a bank that you go bank at, okay? Oh, thank you, Norma, for sharing those books. Awesome, thank you so much. Love that. All right, so you have a bank account, and it's at your local ABC bank, and you have $25,000 in there. Now, this is a special bank, by the way. This bank is going to give you 4% compounded on your money. That's great, okay? So you've got 4% or earning 4% on $25,000. Now you want to buy the car. So what do? Well, you go to your bank and you're going to take the cash out. But the bank says, well, wait a second, don't do that. Instead of taking the cash out, leave the money in your account earning 4%, and we'll give you a loan for $25,000 to go buy the car at a 6% rate. And we'll use your $25,000 cash in the bank as collateral for that loan. Okay. So this is what it looks like. So you're going to have a loan for the car, $25,000 loan, 6% for 60 months. That's 5 years. Okay. And your money inside the bank, the $25,000 in the bank, okay, is going to be at 4% for 60 months. All right. Okay. Now, your monthly payments on the car are $483 per month. When you pay that car back, 100% that loan back, the future value of the payments is $28,999. I'm going to round up to $29,000. So it's $29,000. Okay. But the future value of your money in the bank earning the 4% is $30,525. So by doing this, you've made $1,526. If you had taken the cash out of the bank and bought the car with cash, what would you have right now? You'd have the car and no cash, okay? By doing it this way, yes, you've paid back a loan. Yes, you've done that. But in this scenario, you have the car and you have $30,525. So which of those two scenarios sounds a bit better, okay? So that's why this works. So when you control the flow of money, when you're on both sides of this transaction, you're going to benefit in both ways. Make sense? I'm going to go back one page right here. So, Abby, if you want to take a quick picture of that slide right there. There's a lot more killers of wealth, by the way. This is just the kind of the top ones that we've come up with that I feel are very important, kind of the higher level ones. But yeah, so let's kind of talk about right now the money multiplier method. What are we talking about? So there's 3 parts to this system. So one is the machine. So we're going to talk about what that machine is. Okay. The next part is the marathon. Now we say marathon is a second part because this concept is not a sprint. It's not get rich quick. It's get rich, over time. So we do that by making your money work for you. That is called the marathon. And then the last thing we'll talk about here in the presentation is going to be the millionaire. Okay. Everybody's topic. Everybody wants to become that millionaire. So we're going to talk about how this concept can work with you to build that kind of wealth in your life. So let's get into the first one. That's the machine. So the machine is nothing more than a dividend paying permanent whole life insurance policy from a mutual insurance company. Now, you might be saying, okay, this is infinite banking. How are you becoming your own bank? So think of infinite banking, the concept, like a car. It's got tires, a windshield, nice paint job, hopefully, seats and all air conditioning, all that kind of stuff. But without an engine, that car can't go down the road. So what is the engine that makes the car go down the road? The car being infinite banking. The engine is a whole life, specially designed, by the way, not just off the shelf, a specially designed whole life insurance policy from a specific type of company. That's the engine that makes this thing work. Now you might be thinking, well, I don't like life insurance. I don't need this. Do I need to have that in my life? Well, when you go through this and watch it, we're not talking about life insurance generally. We're talking about the features, the benefits, the living benefits of what this can do for you. Now, I thought when I was young, I didn't need to have anything like this. But then once I started having kids, I realized, oh my gosh, I have to have this. And I should have this in my life. But then when I learned about infinite banking, I realized I can have that and all of these other massive, massive benefits. So that is the machine. Now, you might be thinking, okay, why do we have to use, or why would we want to use whole life insurance? Well, let me kind of pivot for a second. So, who do you think is the number one purchaser of whole life insurance policies in the US? Well, you can see it right there on the screen. Bank-owned life insurance called BOLI. So big banks, they own more life insurance than they do their real estate and their buildings combined. And you can look up BOLI. It's online, by the way. You can look it up. It's crazy how much they own. They've quadrupled the amount they have since 2016. Gee, I wonder why. They know something that we don't? Probably do, but guess what we're going to be doing? Doing the same thing banks do with your money already anyways. So there you go. Alvin said a silly question. How does one design a life insurance policy? Well, there's a lot that goes into that, but we design it for you. So it's designed for what you're trying to accomplish. So what are we trying to solve? What are we trying to do with it? Then we design it to accomplish that. That's why I say it's unique. It's designed for you specifically. It's not something just off the shelf. I do these things all day long, but it's designed specifically for your situation and what you're trying to accomplish. So, and that could be a lot of things that we'll get into it here in a little bit. All right, so that's the machine right there. So now let's look at how your money flows. So we talked about here, that you can make more earning 4% while still paying 6%. Like we talked about it, you can do that because you control all the flow of money in this situation. You control the flow. So you're going to make more earning 4% compounded while paying 6% simple interest. Okay. So what you want to understand is, how does money flow? Because in most situations, you would not be earning any money here. You'd be paying $29,000. That's it, or paying 25 in cash, not making money. But when you control the flow, you can do this. So let's look at how a bank flows money and makes money off of yours. So here's a scenario. Let's say that you deposit $100,000 at a bank, and they're going to turn around, and in that example, like I showed you, are going to pay you 4%. That's pretty good, by the way. So let's say they do that. Now, what do? Do they sit on your money? Absolutely not. They don't do that. They put your money into motion. So what do? Well, they lend it back out, maybe for a mortgage, maybe at 7%, maybe at 4%, maybe at 3%. It doesn't really matter, but they loan it back out. Okay. Now, when you do that, does the seller of the home that gets your money, do they sit on that money? No, of course not. Okay. Guess what? They put it right back into the bank. Okay. So they put this back into the bank. What's the bank do? They do the same thing again, right? They loan that money right back out, maybe to a car loan or a car company for a car loan. What's the car dealership do? Well, guess what they do? They take that money and put it right back into a bank, perhaps. What's the bank do? Same thing. Loan it back out at a home remodel. What's the contractor do? What do the contractor's employees do? Well, they put their money, their paychecks, and the money right back into a bank again. Bank does the same thing. They just keep recycling the money back through different vehicles. Debt consolidation, by the way, 12%. What's the credit card company do? Goes right back into the bank again. So you can see that your bank is keeping the money in motion. Money in motion makes money. So what's the math look like? Well, they're paying you 4%, but making 20%, 500% more than they're paying you. There's the math on the screen. They're making 500% more than you. That's crazy because they control the money. Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is what the banks are doing. So once you start to understand what banks are doing with your money, what do you want to do? Can you maybe do the same thing? Can you keep your money in motion doing the same thing, right? The answer is yes, you can. Now, we can't do all the things that a bank does, of course, because they do something called fractional reserve banking, which should be criminal, by the way, but it's not. But banks can do this and then multiply it by 10. It's really crazy what they can do. And then the other person said, I spoke to my IUL policy issuer and they said this doesn't work because they don't know your plan. So if they say this doesn't work, then they're not doing infinite banking. They're just selling you it's called a high commission policy. And yeah, if someone says this doesn't work, then they have no idea how it works. They don't know how to do this or they can't do it. So I can, by the way, if you want to hop on a call with me, Carrie, I can walk you through very quickly how this works. I can show you exactly how it works. And if I even will sometimes look at an IUL policy and I can show you what they built for you and why it doesn't do what I'm talking about here. So yeah, the 500%, Antonio, on this example here comes from, they're paying you 4% on your money, but if you times that by a lot, by how much more they're making, if you look at the numbers here, they're making 3, 4, 5, 8. They're making money in a lot of different spots, and so they're making 500% more than you are on the same money. So it should be almost criminal. But you're making 4, they're making 20%. That's the way it works. And then they can take the 20% and times it by typically 10. So, but I'm not going to get into that whole thing. I got a separate presentation that I do on fractional reserve banking, which is very scary. So, and by the way, here's where it comes to, Antonio, is that banks make between 400 and 1,300% on your money, and they have to disclose that, by the way. So you can go to BauerFinancial.com if you ever want to, and you can see what banks are doing or making on your money. And you can actually go back like 20 years and see what they've been doing. Banks have been doing this for decades. And I think if you go look, there's not one bank that's doing less than 400% on your money. So yeah, so it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy how much they're making on your money. So yeah. So once again, go to BauerFinancial.com if you want to see what I just talked about. Okay. All right. Now what we're going to talk about is the annual pattern of spending. Now, this is a little scary when you start to get into it, but this is going to really help you understand how your money is flowing and why, when you look at something like infinite banking, you can get back in control. Yeah. And so Carrie said another thing, infinite banking, and they said it was not meant to work that way. Yeah. So I could get that with you. Yeah. Unfortunately, that some people will say that. All right. So what's the annual pattern of spending? So let's say $1 comes in to your hands, into your bank account. Where does that money go? Well, 20 cents of every dollar that comes into your household goes out to automobiles, so cars. So think of payments, gas, tires, upkeep, that kind of. Then 30 cents of every dollar goes to housing. Okay. 40 cents of every dollar goes to everything else. Okay. Travel, entertainment, food, etc. Think of it this way. That's 90 cents right there. 90 cents of every dollar goes to other people, and 10% goes to you for savings. Now, I'm saying 10% right now, but before COVID, I think it was before COVID, it was a negative number. And then about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, it was about 5 to 6%, not even 10%, by the way. So this is where your money's going. So now what we're going to be talking about is the savings number, because if you go talk to a financial planner, we're going to talk about the interest on these things, not the savings, the interest. Because if you go talk to a traditional financial planner, what do they talk to you about? It's the savings. They say, oh, okay, take the 10%. Let's go put it into a mutual fund. Let's go put it into this investment fund. We'll make you a bunch of money for retirement. They focus on the savings only. Okay. But we don't want to talk about that, because I want to have more savings. I want to have more going into that thing and working for me. So what we are going to talk about is what you're spending, how to get back control of a portion of that so that you can grow your savings, grow that future nest egg. Okay. So there's your savings, 10% right there. Now let's talk about automobiles. So as I said, on average, 20 cents of every dollar goes to automobiles, but 5 cents of that 20 cents is interest, right? It's interest. So I'm going to take that 5% and I'm going to put it back into the savings. Okay. So that grows the savings. Now let's look at the next one, housing. Now, the scary thing about housing is that if you have like an amortized mortgage, of the 30 cents, okay, 25 cents of every 30 cents is going to interest. Like that's scary. That's a lot of money. But with an amortized mortgage, that is what's happening. Okay. That's what's happening, because the first, 8 years of an amortized mortgage, 80% of your payments to the bank go to interest only. So you're not getting ahead at all. So a lot of interest goes out the door for housing. So we're going to take that 25 cents, put it back into the savings. Okay. It grows it there. Now, the next one is entertainment. That's 40 cents of every dollar goes to everything else. And about 5% of that goes to interest. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can recapture 5% of that and put that back into savings. Okay. So what have we done here? So what we've done is we've recaptured the interest and moved that over to our savings bucket. Does that make sense? So that's what we've been doing. Okay. All right. So Frank asked a question here. What if we lose the dollar? I'm not quite sure what you mean there, but don't lose the dollar. But I'm not sure what you mean by that. But that's money coming in. So it's like that's your income, that's your salary, that's your business revenue, whatever that is. That's what I was referring to. But if you lose that income, well, that's a different kind of situation. But yeah, if you want to clarify, yeah, I could answer that a bit more detail. Okay. All right, so that's the annual pattern of spending and what infinite banking can help you do to increase your savings. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you how to get all the money back for every car that you'll ever drive and own. Now, I love cars. That's not a car that I own, unfortunately. That's a Mustang, a GT 500 right there. Now, I've owned a lot of cars. I've owned Mustangs, Fairlanes. I currently drive a 67 Mercury Cougar that I restored, but I love cars. So this is a great analogy and shows you how to get all the interest back for all the cars you ever buy and own. Now, this is the machine. Let's go ahead and look under the hood of infinite banking. Okay. Now, once again, when we look at this, I want you to keep an open mind because we are going to be talking about some of the aspects of life insurance, but keep in mind, we're talking about infinite banking being the bank. So you'll see on the right-hand side, that is what's called a preliminary illustration or a detail showing some of the aspects of a policy. You don't need to understand that right now, but you're going to see some different terms over here. So one is premium deposit. So when you look at like a home insurance, car insurance, you have these premiums. That's an expense. What I want you to understand is that when we look at infinite banking, it's not an expense like it is for car insurance because you can use the asset that you put into the policy. So we call these premium deposits. So you'll see that term on the right-hand side, you'll see deposits. I'm going to use that term moving forward. So premiums are deposits because it's an asset. So age, when we think about insurance, a lot of people say, oh, I'm too old, or I'm 60 years old, I can't do this. Age doesn't matter to a point. So we have people doing these that are, by the way, I just did one with somebody who is, I think they were 72 years old. I have a client that is 78 doing a policy on somebody else. So the cool thing about infinite banking is that you can do this concept with other people. So it can be very versatile, and age affects a lot of times the death benefit, which is not the main focus of infinite banking. It's a benefit, but it's not the main one. So age typically does not matter. Also, when you go talk to a traditional agent about this kind of stuff, they're going to focus on death benefit. So someone mentioned an IUL. Well, with the IUL, the first question they asked you may have been, how much death benefit do you want? That's not how this works. We look at how do we want to fund this policy and what are we going to do with the cash value inside the policy. The death benefit is a result of that. So we don't focus on that. So there's some quick pointers right there. All right, so let's go ahead and look at an example of buying cars with this concept. So let's get this all set up here. So with infinite banking, the one thing I do want to make sure that you understand is that you have to capitalize the policy, capitalize the account first, which means you have to put money into it to get the machine working. So we've got to keep that in mind. So on this example, we're going to look at doing a premium deposit of $10,000 a year. In this case, for 7 years, you'll see it right there. So we're going to put in $10,000 a year for 7 years. At year 3, we're going to go buy a car. So inside the policy, you're building cash value. You can borrow against that cash value. So we're going to take $25,000 out of the policy. And in this example, we're going to go buy a car. Now you could go buy real estate. You could go buy, college education, other things with it, but I'm going to use a car as an example. So now, because you are your own bank and you loaned yourself that $25,000, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to treat your bank like you would another bank, right? You're going to pay yourself back with interest. So we're going to assume $500 a month, that's $6,000 per year in payments back to your policy. So at the end of the 7 years, how's this math look? Okay, so we put in 70,000 of deposits. We've put another $30,000 back in via the payments back to the loan. That's $100,000, but we also took out $25,000 of cash. You could have held that cash in your hands and done nothing with it, by the way, but we went and bought a car with it or something like that. So let's back off the $25,000. So we have put $75,000 really into this policy and we have a car. Now, here's the crazy thing. So you'll see right here, inside the policy, you have $67,881 of cash value that you control and can use. You have recaptured 91 cents of every dollar. Okay. You have a car, you have $67,000 of cash value. You've captured 91 cents of every dollar. Remember, we talked about recapturing your money. Okay. Now, let's go to the next set of years. Let's go through years 8 through 12. Now, in this example, and you can do this, by the way, with infinite banking, no more deposits go in. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can choose to no longer put money towards your policy. Now, the growth will slow down, but you can still do that. Now, in year 8, we're going to do the same thing again. 5 years later, buy another car, $25,000 in there, pay back that loan at $6,000 per year. Okay. So that's what this one looks like. So what's it look like at the end of year 12? Okay, so you've put $30,000 back into the policy, okay? But you've also taken $25,000 out. So in reality, how much did you put into the policy? $5,000, yet you have $91,473 of cash value available. So you actually grew the cash value in those 5 years by $23,592. So if you guys, I want you to understand what we just did. So realistically, we put in $5,000 into the policy, got a car, and made $23,000. So let me ask you a question. Would you, and if you guys aren't following the math, that's fine. Let me just ask you a basic question. Would you like to put $5,000 into something and get $23,000 out of it? Is that a good return on your money while also still getting a car free and clear that you own outright? So give me something in the chat box if that makes sense. Is that something that you would like to do, or would that make sense to do that in life? Like Lillian said, yes. There you go. Yeah, Pat said yes. Yes, that makes sense, right? And so the other way to look at this is in this example, how much do you put into this policy? Well, 75 plus 5 is $80,000. Okay, 80,000. Keep in mind, this is a very conservative approach, but you put in 80 and your cash value is $91,000 and growing every single year. And you're not doing anything else. You're just sitting here looking at it grow. That's money ahead. And you have 2 cars at the exact same time. That's the thing I want you to understand right there. You put in 80, you have 91,000 of cash value, and you have 2 cars that you own outright. That's pretty amazing right there. Versus if you went and paid cash for the cars, you'd have negative $50,000. So that's how this can work for buying cars. All right, so with the machine, there's 3 rules that we talk about. So you'll hear us talk about this or hear me talk about this. So rule number 1 is pay yourself first. Okay, pay yourself first. We're trained to pay our bills first. The phone company, the landlord, you know, the whatever it is, all those other people. There's nothing wrong with paying bills, but with infinite banking, we want to pay ourselves first. Now, it's not every dollar goes into infinite banking and then you go buy, you know, clothes and groceries. I'm not saying that. But when it comes to banking functions, before you pay, you know, for the car loan, for the college education, before you pay for the, you know, maybe it's real estate investment, pay yourself first. That's what we're talking about. Then pay yourself with interest, because banks charge you interest and make money off of you. So if you are your own bank, pay yourself with interest because you are going to be the one that benefits. And the last rule is recycle and recapture your money. So what we mean by that is recycle your money through the infinite banking system. You're going to recapture that money and have more and more and more to use down the road, because it's going to keep compounding. So you're going to have more and more to use, which is going to build your wealth exponentially faster than without infinite banking in place. So those are the 3 rules. Now, by the way, this works for a car. So people do use this for cars. And by the way, we have software that will show you how to buy a car with infinite banking. But what else do people use infinite banking for? Well, one of the main ones that a lot of people do is debts. So think about debts. Debt just sucks wealth away from you. It's sucking just money away from you through interest and payments. But what if you didn't have those debts? Or what if you recaptured those debts and you had the cash flow coming into your hands now? So if you combine infinite banking with paying off debts, then down the road, you have that cash flow and infinite banking. That's where you really start to build a lot of wealth. So paying off debts first is one of the best ways to really get you kind of on the other side of the fence. So let's look at an example here. I want to go through an example of, and this is based on a real example. So the numbers have been changed, of course, a little bit to mirror the policies. But so this is an example of a 45-year-old male doctor, has 9 third-party debts, $478,000 of total debts. and they have cash flow. They got cash flow, but they've got all of these debts. So the total payments are $5,777 per month, or around 70 grand per year. That's a lot of money going out. If this person just paid those debts off normally, like we're taught, right? Just pay your monthly payments, okay? It would take them around 19 years to pay all this back. 19 years. So if you're going to wait 19 years to then, start investing or building wealth, it's not going to happen. And also what happens is that halfway through those 19 years, this individual might get more debts. So if they're drowning in debt today, most likely 10 years down the road, they're going to be drowning in debt again. So let's look at how infinite banking can really help this person pay off these debts. Okay, so let's just go get it set up. Okay, so what they're going to do is do an infinite banking policy. They're going to put in $25,000 deposit into that policy at the beginning of the calendar year, or beginning of the year, or whatever they want to start the policy. So keep in mind, we talk about we have to capitalize the accounts first. That's what that is right there. So, and we're being very conservative with these numbers. Typically, it's going to be a little bit faster than this, but they put in $25,000 into their policy, their banking policy, and within 30 days, so this is a catch. So I want you guys to understand what I just said. They're going to put $25,000 into their infinite banking policy, and within 30 days are going to be able to borrow around $14,863. Now, once again, that's a conservative number, but they're borrowing this within 30 days, not 3 years, not 12 months, 30 days. Okay. So they borrow that cash, that $14,000, and we show you how to do this. They pay off the Discover card, the Lowe's card, and part of the Nordstrom card gets paid off. The total debt drops down, and the monthly payment drops by $448. Now, I want you to understand, and by the way, once again, we show you how to do this. So what we do is we take that $448 and we pay it back into the policy loan. Okay, so we pay it back into that loan that we took out from our own policy. So the cash flow doesn't change, but where it goes does change, because $448 is now going back into the policy loan. The rest is going to the existing debts. Okay, let's go to year 2. Year 2, same thing happens. 25 goes into the policy via the premium deposit. The cash value that they get from that deposit is $16,571. If you might see what's going on here. The cash value you're getting every year is going up. It's going to be growing and growing because of compound interest, because you're earning dividends, or around 5, whatever they are, dividends on your total deposits. So you're getting the benefits of being part of this system. The payments of $448 back to your loan increase the cash value by $5,374. So the total cash that you have available in your policy to borrow against right now is $21,945. Now keep in mind, you already took out 14. So 14 plus 21, there you go. So you take out that 21, and what do you do with it? Well, you pay off Nordstrom, pay off Wells Fargo, pay off the private loan, and pay off a portion of the BMW. Your debts drop down to $378,000, okay? And your monthly payment is now only $3,860, and you're now taking $1,917 of that monthly payment, and you're putting that back into your policy loan to replenish the cash value available, okay? Now, year 3, same thing, 25 goes in, but now you're starting to get a lot of growth. In this example, $25,541 of additional cash value, plus the payments back to yourself, is $23,000 and change. Total cash available is $48,545. So what do? Same thing, right? You pay off the BMW, pay off West Marine, probably a pretty nice boat or something like that. And then you pay off a portion of the condo. Your monthly payments now drop down to $2,100. $3,677 goes back into your policy loan, and your total debts are $283,000. By the way, guys, this is year 3. This is the beginning of year 3, by the way. Okay. So I'm going to pause here for a second. What I want you to understand is how much did we put in? So we put in $75,000 so far, years 1, 2, and 3. We put in 75. How much have we taken out? Around $55,000. So the question is, how much is left in the policy earning you guaranteed returns? Okay. How much is left in the policy? Is it $20,000? Now, Alvin, of course, knows the answer. It's not $20,000, because if this is infinite banking, you have $75,000 still in your policy, earning you compound interest. That's insane. That's crazy. So you borrowed 55, but you're still earning dividends on the full $75,000. So you're not doing one thing or the other. You're doing infinite banking, getting dividends on that money and paying off your debts at the exact same time. Now, how is that happening? Okay, a couple things. And so, and Robert, by the way, so the 25K comes from, yeah, your cash flow. Could be business, could be revenue, could be a W-2 job, could be investments, could be any of that kind of stuff. And then Nikki Williams asked, how is it that we just did this? Because your cash value in your policy is the collateral for the loan the insurance company gives you. It's a guaranteed loan, no credit check. I'll get into that more down the road in this presentation. But yeah, so the cash value doesn't truly leave your policy. It's still there earning you dividends. It's just collateral. So that's how it does it. Okay. So, and we'll get into some more of the inner workings of how this works. But I mean, that's the amazing part of infinite banking, how it works. Okay, so let's go back now. Let's go to year 4. So year 4, 25 goes in, same thing. Cash value 26,000 goes up. Payments of $3,677 back to ourselves equals 44,000 and change. So the total cash now available to borrow against is $70,439. So what do? Same thing. So we take a portion of that, or we take that 70,000 and we pay off a portion of the condo. Now, here's the difference. The condo and the house are amortized mortgages, so an amortized loan. When you pay off the principal, the payment doesn't change. So even though we took $70,000 and paid off a portion of the condo, the monthly payment does not change in year 4. Okay, so but our total debt is now only $187,000. So in year 5, same thing happens. We do 25,000 goes in, cash value goes up by $27,090. Payments back to ourselves is 44,000. Total cash is 71. What do? Well, now we take care of the condo. It's paid off 100%, and we pay off a portion of the house, and our monthly payment goes down to only $1,221, and the $4,556 goes back into our policy loans to replenish the cash there. So let's look at year 6. Now, year 6 is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to do a second policy now. So a lot of people that do infinite banking, when they start to see how it works, they do a second policy on themselves, on their spouse, because you can have more than one policy on yourself. That's the beauty of infinite banking. So in this example, this client decides to lower their premium on their first policy to $10,000 per year. But get this, they put in $10,000 in this is year 6. The cash value still goes up by $13,092. That's a pretty good cash on cash return, and it gets better and better every year. The second policy, they do the same thing. 25,000 goes into that one. Cash value is $14,000, and the payments back to themselves is $54,678. So the total cash available is $82,000 and change. Guess what they do? Well, they take 76 out. They pay off the house. They are debt free, and their monthly payments are now 0 to debts. And what do? This is year 6. In year 7, they pay back 100% of their policy loans to themselves. And here is the thing that is amazing. So at the end of year 7, they have no more debts, which means they have $5,777 of additional monthly cash flow they can do something with. They have about probably $100,000 of cash value inside their infinite banking policy. So if you understand what just happened, is instead of paying their debts off in 19 years, they paid them off in 7 years, have no debts, and have massive cash value inside this policy. Now what can they do? Whatever they want. So now they can start taking that money, the cash flow and the cash value in the policy, and start investing, start building wealth, buying rental properties, paying for a college education, whatever they want. But the point here is that they completely change their entire financial situation in a fraction of the time, just by doing one thing differently. Where did their money go first? It went through infinite banking. It went through a policy. Now, yes, they have to have the cash to capitalize the account and do this. That is one of the things we have to do. You can't get everything for nothing, right? But this is pretty amazing. And by the way, we've done this for hundreds upon hundreds of clients. Okay, so probably thousands now. All right, so Robert asked a question: can you take money from the policy 1 and use it in policy 2? So I think what you're saying is, could you do a second policy you take that money and put it into the policy number 1 or number 2. You could, but I'm not quite sure why. If you're talking about the premium deposits, I would not recommend doing that. The reason why is because when you borrow, you create a loan. So you wouldn't want to fund this vehicle with another loan that has interest, because now you're stacking interest, and I wouldn't recommend doing that per se. So I'd recommend, if you could do that, take the money out and put it into an asset that cash flows, take the cash flow from the asset and then put that back into the deposit for a second policy. That's how you do it. And that's really exciting. Lillian, yes, you can. Yes, you can. So I'm going to show that in a moment here, by the way. Now, if what I just showed you was kind of a little complicated and a lot of numbers, by the way, I couldn't even show you how to do that all that well, because there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. So we have software that shows our clients and shows you how to do what I just said. Okay, that's called our Debt Blaster. So the Debt Blaster is amazing. So Craig on our team built this, and don't worry about all the stuff on the screen here, but it shows you how to do it. And then also it'll compare the payback to traditional method of paying back debts. It'll compare it to velocity banking, and it will compare it to what's called the avalanche or snowball method. Infinite banking wins almost every single time. It wins, I think every time it does win, because it'll pay back the debts in the same amount of time, but you're going to pay a lot less interest, make a lot less payments, and have significant wealth after the fact. So it completely flip-flops the whole situation. So on this one, you probably can't see it, but on this one, this person, instead of paying it back in 336 months, or instead of 56 months, they paid it back in 53 months. They paid a lot less in payments, a lot less in interest, and they have $33,539 of cash value of wealth for the rest of their lives. It's going to be compounding versus just paying the debts off and having nothing left. So we will show you how to do this. So don't worry about it, because we have what are called an implementation team as part of our team. So we're a fairly large team of people here. And so we will actually blueprint this stuff out for you, which I don't know a lot of others that do that. So if you're saying, man, I don't know if this can work for me, or how does this work? I'll put my link in here in a moment to schedule a call with me, but yeah, we'll walk you through how it works. So don't worry about that kind of stuff. We'll show you. So now let's move on to the third part, the millionaire. What if I have no bad debt? Lillian asked that question. What if I don't need a new car, as an example? Can I still benefit from privatized banking? Should I become my own banker? Absolutely, absolutely, because this is where the fun begins. Now we're starting to build wealth. Now we're creating a legacy. So the thing about infinite banking is that it does a lot of things at the same time. Like I mentioned in the very beginning, it does a lot of things at the same time. I repeat myself, by the way, because it's worth repeating. So Lillian, yes, you can do infinite banking. You don't have to do what I just showed you. But additionally, when you do use infinite banking, you are acting as a bank. So you create debt, but it's debt is yours. You control it. That's the difference. So debt with a bank, I don't want. Debt with myself, I'm more than happy, because I'm in control and I'm building wealth. Okay. So creating wealth in multiple ways. So here's how people use infinite banking to build wealth. So one is real estate. Real estate is very common. Wholesalers, flippers, buy and hold. Commercial properties, think of like apartments, mobile homes, things like that. Private funds, passive real estate, which is like lending your funds out to other investors. Business owners love infinite banking because it keeps their money in their control. Stocks and options traders, startup companies have used this before. And then, of course, equipment flipping. If you don't know what equipment flipping is, it's something that one of our private groups does, where they buy like certain types of equipment, they renovate them, then they lease them back out. There's lots of ways to make money, but the cool thing, though, is you can do all of these things, and you're doing infinite banking, getting those dividends and building wealth compounded with guarantees for the rest of your life, while doing all of these things at the same time. Okay, so here's an example of using private banking for private money lending. Okay, so this is an example of a policy illustration. This is called the tabular detail. And this person is putting in a $50,000 premium per year. Now, don't worry about the numbers. If it's 10,000, it's fine. If it's 50, it's fine. Doesn't matter. It's based upon your situation. They're also putting in what's called a dump in. At the very beginning of these policies, you can do what's called a dump in. It's typically a one-time deposit. This person's putting in $100,000. So you can see 150 goes in year one. That's a $50,000 premium deposit and a $100,000 dump in. The $100,000 dump in is very attractive for a lot of people. It can be 10,000, it can be 1,000, it can be 50. It's whatever is a fit for you. but it gets a lot of cash value very fast. So let's look at this policy down the road, right? Because when we look at infinite banking, it's a marathon. So at year 8, this person's cash value, which is what they can use and borrow, went up by $66,722. Okay, so their bank grew by that amount of money. Okay, but how much did they put in? They only put in $48,594. So what is that? That's an $18,000 growth, or a 37% cash on cash return. So let me ask you, as investors or individuals, would you want to have a 37% cash on cash return? And by the way, you did nothing other than had infinite banking. That's the only thing you have is infinite banking, and yet your cash is growing by that amount of money. Give me a 1, give me a yes, give me a Y, give me something in the chat box if that sounds like a good cash on cash return. I'm taking a drink of water. Yes, it's a very good cash on cash return, but let's make it better. Let's make this return better. So let's say you're going to private lend money, which you lend money to a real estate investor for a project. Okay. Typical rates for private lending are anywhere from 12 to 15%. Okay, so let's use 12%. Sometimes there's points on top of that, but let's use 12%. Okay. So let me back up for a second. So Nikki asked a question here. I don't follow. They put in 150 plus 50K for 7 more years. Yes, exactly. So yes, that's what they did. So they're funding this policy. So think of the savings. Remember back in the earlier part of the presentation, we talked about saving. Okay. So they're putting as much of their money through the policy that they can, and then they're doing the other things that they would use a bank for traditionally, buying cars, investing, whatever it is. So yes, they're doing this first because this is where they want their money to go, and then they're going to utilize it. So in this scenario, this person has put in what you said, 150 year 1 and 50 for 7 years, but they have $531,000 of cash value to leverage. And they're earning dividends every single year. So I'm just using your 8 as an example. So in this one, they're getting a 37% cash on cash return in that year. Now, let's say they want a private lend. So private lending is a 12% return typically on your money. So if they private lend that money, they're going to earn 12% plus the 37% they got already on the cash on cash return. They're going to pay themselves back 5%. So the return they're getting on their money is 44%. It's 44% on their money. Okay. That's incredible. Okay. So by doing infinite banking, they're getting a higher return, because if they didn't use infinite banking, they'd only get 12% by private lending the money. So we did nothing different except where the money went first. Because it went to infinite banking first, then it went out to the opportunities. They're going to earn 44% by being their own banker. So which one sounds better, 12% or 44%? I know it's kind of a rhetorical question, because 44% is pretty good. But the fun thing about infinite banking, though, is that the longer it's in place, the better and better and better it gets. So year 1 is still great, but guess what? And by the way, in year 3, this person is cash on cash positive already. But it's going to get better and better every year, because on this person in year 10, you can't quite see it. They put in the 48,000, but the cash value, it doesn't go up by 66,000 this time. It goes up by 72,000. And that's in year 10, by the way, on this example. So it just keeps getting better and better. All right. So really quickly, I want to show you why that happens. Why does it get better and better every year? Because that is what is called uninterrupted compound interest. It is one of the 8 wonders of the world. Not a lot of other vehicles can even allow this to occur. So in this example, this person puts in a $50,000 dump in. That's a one-time thing. And they put in $5,895,000 per year as their premium deposit. So in year 1, they put in around $56,000. Cash value, year 1, end of year 1, by the way, was $51,000. So here's how the math works. So look at the cash on cash return column. In year 2, it's 21%. Year 10, 54. Year 20, 191. Year 30, 386% cash on cash return. That's great, but look at the access to capital. Year 2, 121%. Year 10, 154%. So they already have more access to capital than they did if they just had pure cash. Okay. Year 30, 486% access to capital. That's amazing. Okay. All right. So I want to answer some questions here. So Nikki said, are the annual dividends guaranteed? They're not, by the way. The dividends are not guaranteed. Okay, but they do have guarantee percentages that you will get no matter what. And that varies between 3.5% to like 2.5%. But the dividends are more than that. They're about twice as much. They're between 5 and 6%. But here's the interesting thing. They have paid dividends every year for over 145 years. So they're probably going to pay the dividends in next year, by the way. And they paid dividends, which by the way is profitability. They paid dividends every year. So I'm talking the Great Depression, World War I, World War II, COVID, 2008 and 9 crisis. They have paid dividends every year because they've been profitable every year. These companies, very profitable, very secure. Yeah, they've been around for a long time. Okay, let's see here. Will these work with IULs? No. The straight answer to that is just a no. And if you want to get into it more at the very end of the presentation, I can talk more about IULs, but infinite banking, it does not use IULs. They have some of the same features and stuff because an IUL is an offshoot of whole life, permanent whole life, but it's not the same thing. If I dump money in on year one, is that deferred in my taxes? So when you're funding infinite banking, it's post-tax dollars, so it doesn't really affect your taxes. So the growth though, and leveraging and using it, that's where you get the tax benefits because you can borrow tax-free. That's a loan, right? And the growth is all tax-free, okay? And then the death benefit, which I'll talk about in a moment, is also tax-free. So a lot of tax-free stuff. I like saying tax-free. Is access to funds readily available? If not, what time frame? So yeah, so about 3 days. So yeah, you can, if you have cash value, it's a guaranteed loan. You don't have to ask permission. There's no credit check, nothing like that. You just say, gimme, 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 and they'll give it to you. So typically 3 days to get the money into your account. And will this work for an 80-year-old? So there is a point at which it does not work or make sense for you as the insured. So at 80 years old, I'll be honest, no, it wouldn't make sense. But if you want to use infinite banking for generational wealth, for setting it up for yourself to use it, you can do a policy and you can own it on somebody else. So if 80 years old is too old to do it right now, well, what if you have, a brother, a sister, or a spouse, adult kids who are 50 or 60 or 40? You can do it on them and you can be the owner of it and still use it the exact same way. So it's very versatile. And by the way, guys, keep the questions coming. All right, so let's talk about the Millionaire as well. So how do you eat an elephant? So it's, guess what? It's one bite at a time. And so the man at the top of the mountain didn't fall there. So what I mean by that is that like infinite banking, you have to take that first step, right? You're not going to fall on top of the mountain, but when you look at the other illustration I gave you an example of, at year 8, it was awesome. So think of that like this. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you get to the top of the mountain? Right? You got to start taking those first steps and get up there. What's the youngest age you can use it on? I think the earliest I've done it is 1 week, 1 week old. Yeah, so 1 week. Your wife, 70? Yeah, I've done them on people in their 70s. Yeah, especially female, by the way. So sorry, guys. Females get a better rating and because their lifespan is longer, so it can work better for them sometimes. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but mainly later on in life. France asked, what industry companies or brokers are best for getting these types of policies? Well, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say us. I'm going to say me. This is what we do. We only do infinite banking, by the way. We don't do anything else. We just do infinite banking. I've helped thousands of people do this concept, so that's what we do. And I believe that we are probably one of the best, if not the best, that does this. We are probably the largest, one of the largest, if not the largest company that does this concept for people. We've have over 11,000 clients doing this. And then we work with multiple companies. So we're not tied to one company. We will use whatever company is the best fit for the client for you. So hopefully that answers that question. But there's not a lot of people that do these kinds of policies the right way. If you talk to a financial planner, be careful. Nothing against financial planners, but they have a lot of other things they do. This is all we do. We stay in our lane. So there you go. So the machine works for debts and expenses, right? We showed that. But what else can you use it for? Vacations, homes. We have people that pay their taxes with this concept because they have to save up every month for down the road because they have a business. So they'll save it through infinite banking first, then borrow and then pay themselves back, and they don't lose that money. There's lots of different things you can use this for. All right. So Alvin asked a great question here. Do many insurance companies offer these types of policies? The answer is no, they don't. No, they don't. So there's about 10 that really do it, but there's about 4 to 5 that we use that do it well. And none of the companies that do infinite banking have ever defaulted, have ever gone out of business or been, been taken over. That's never happened. So some people ask me like, well, if a bank can go under, What about insurance companies? Well, it's never happened. They also have they have a lot more assets than banks. They're a lot more liquid. Sandy asked, "Is health the number one thing considered to determine qualifications for whole life?" It's not the number one thing, but it is one of the things they do consider. Yep, it is one of the things they do consider. All right, let me get through these next slides real quick here. So this is one thing that, when it comes to infinite banking, I want you to wrap your minds around this. So remember the condo, remember the house for that doctor that we showed how to pay the debts off in 7 years instead of 19. So what would have happened though if we paid off the home and the condo as promised to the banks? Okay. So here's the payments: $879 for the condo. The house was $1,221. So over the span of that loan, you would have paid back $220,000 for the condo, $273 for the house. You would have paid back $493,000. Okay. You would have paid that. Now, let's look at it with infinite banking. Let's say you're going to pay yourself back. You're going to take it over like we showed, and you're going to have a 4% interest rate. Okay. It's actually 5 and something, 5.3, but let's just use 4% for this one. Okay. So there's the monies right there. So you'll have paid off the condo, you'll have paid off the house. And inside your banking policy, this is if you did it for the same time frame, by the way, you'd have $749,000. So what did I just say there? So if you had paid yourself back the same as a bank, you're going to have $750,000 and you own the house and the condo. If you'd done it traditionally, you'd have paid $493,000 and own the house and the condo. Gee, I wonder which example sounds better, right? That's why this is so powerful. All right, so David said, I have an IUO currently. How do I convert that over to infinite banking? David, schedule a call with me and I'll walk you through how that works. It's called a 1035. You can move the cash value from one to the other if it makes sense for you. It has to make sense for you, by the way, but I can always look at the existing policy and give you some feedback if it's efficient or not, and we can go from there. Nikki said, the companies are only mutual insurance companies. Correct. Only mutual insurance companies, because those are owned by the policy holders. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Jeff, it's a difference of over 1.2 million. It is that swing. Yeah, it's pretty massive. Now, granted, it takes quite a bit of time to do that, but that's the example I want to give, because marathon versus a sprint. Well, if you look at the marathon, this example here created 1.2 million of wealth. That's staggering right there. So yeah, pretty powerful. Now, this is called the gain projector. So this is another piece of software that we use with our clients, so that if you want to do something like an investment, a house, something like that, we're going to show you how to do it. So what I just showed you was kind of a summary, of course, but this is the details of how it would look. So let's say you want to go buy real estate. I'm going to go do an investment, private lend, maybe buy a rental property, whatever it is. We have software that will work with you on, and it'll show you the best way to flow the money through the policy and through the investment to get the best return possible on your money. So making your money work for you, very powerful. Okay, so guys, to schedule a call with me, it's right there. It's brian.beyourownbanker.com. So by the way, I've got more slides. We're not done, by the way. I've got a lot more information I want to share with you that really even paints a more powerful picture of what this can do. So there it is right there. There'll be a calendar. You can go choose a time on that calendar, and then we'll be good to go. But you're talking to me personally, by the way. You're talking to me personally. It's not somebody else, so it's me personally. So what would you recommend to someone who wants to become an insurance agent for this particular product? So Sandy, send me an email. Yeah, send me an email, and then I can put you in put you in touch with somebody who on our team can do that. But there is a process. So to be even where I'm at right now, we have to be infinite banking practitioners, users. We're trained. I've been teaching this for many years, so that's how. Abby asked, can you use a 0% credit card to quickly fund this policy, pull funds out after 30 days, multiply the funds through cash flow and investments before the card starts accruing interest? Yes, you can. Abby, you can do that, but be very cautious doing that. That's just my caveat to that statement. Be very careful, because what you're doing is leveraging one type of debt to fund this, and then taking that and going to do something else. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. You can do it. People have done it many, many times. I've even walked them through how to do that, but it has to make sense for you. But yeah, if you want to schedule a call with me, I can go through how that would look. But yeah, I have had people do that. Yeah. And then France said, what size policy would you need to borrow $200,000? So it's not the size of the policy, it's really how you fund it. So you're going to have to fund or capitalize the policy in order to borrow 200,000. So you'd have to put in $200,000 or more to be able to borrow that kind of money out of it, or you have to fund the policy and let it compound and grow to that point. So there's a couple of ways. We have people that move money out of like 401ks into this concept so they can access it and start using it for building wealth instead of letting it just sit in that account and not do anything. So it's a personal kind of structure. Alvin said, Brian, my question is similar to Sandy's. How do I become an insurance agent who can market this type of product? So the licensing is pretty simple. I mean, you go to your state's insurance website and just, hey, I want to be a producer. What's the process? You got to go through a certain amount of hours of training, get a certificate of that training, go take a test, get your license. There you go. If you're already licensed, okay, there you go. I just said right there. If you're already licensed, so I would recommend sending me an email and then I can help you out from there. But yeah, there is a process to that. I've never sold other types of insurance. I only have done infinite banking. So if we do infinite banking, so this is the way I look at it. If you want to do infinite banking, there's a couple ways you can promote it and benefit from just teaching other people how to do this. And by the way, it's my mission. I believe in what it can do for people. I believe in what it can do for your families and generational wealth and how it can really save people from what is happening around the world right now with our money. I truly believe in this. So I do this full time. You cannot do it full time and still benefit, but I can talk to you about that, Alan. But yeah, I'll go off on tangents if you want me to when it comes to how this can help people out. But I'll put my email address here in the chat box once again. Yeah, and so that's the best way to get in touch with me. All right, so let's kind of get into some other slides. And by the way, guys, keep the questions coming. I love it. So I love the questions. So make that money work for you. That's really, I love this picture because it's you want to make your money work for you by being your own bank. That's really the concept here is that oftentimes we're working for our money. We're working, taking that money and putting it into 401k, savings, whatever, and then we keep going back and working. But we want to flip that around. Yes, work for your money, but get your money working for you. And that's really where you can start to flip the game a little bit and really start making quite a bit of, building wealth. Now, let's talk about some of the other cool things about infinite banking. We didn't talk about the death benefit all that much. I mentioned it, but I didn't really talk about it. The death benefit is a guarantee. It's guaranteed to be paid out at some point down the road. That's generational wealth. I don't know of any other vehicle that day one has a guaranteed wealth like this thing does. So let's say your premium is $500. You put in $500. If your death benefit is $300,000, that's guaranteed. If something happens to you, if you graduate, as we call it, up to that place in the sky, hopefully not down below, but if you graduate day one, that $300,000 is going to go to your beneficiaries, your next generation, tax-free. So if you think about that, you're multiplying your money for down the future. It's why wealthy families get wealthier every generation, and people are scratching their heads saying, wait a second, how did that family get so wealthy, but they're not paying any taxes? What is going on? That makes no sense. They're buying all these things. Life insurance. So if you, over the course of someone's life, you put in, let's say $1 million, and just using round numbers here, of premium deposits into the policy, the death benefit might be 5 million. You multiplied your money 5 times for that next generation. That's how a lot of people create generational wealth. Okay. The loans, they never have to be repaid. You control the loans. And I'm going to get into that in a moment, but that's pretty powerful. The internal values grow tax-free. The policies are exempt from judgments and liens in most states. It's a protected asset in most states. You can create tax-free income in retirement. Okay. So I'm going to go through a few of these topics because they're worth noting. But once again, guys, if you want to schedule a call with me personally, just go to brian.beerourownbanker.com and grab a time there. So this is an illustration. So what I want you to note is over on the right-hand side, if you can't see it, it shows the death benefit. Okay, that is generational wealth. Here's the thing. It's always growing with infinite banking. So in this example, in year 1, it's $325,000. In year 7, it's $499,000. It went up by $175,000 over 7 years. So it's always increasing the generational wealth aspect of the strategy. So, and of course, the cash value is also going up over time. But that's why wealthy families do this for generational wealth, because of that right there. Policy loans. Okay, The loans are guaranteed. Ask for it, you're going to get it. If the policy is obviously has to be current, but the policy loans are guaranteed. There is no credit check. There's no approval. Ask and you shall receive. The loans are also private, so they do not go on your credit report. This is very important. Why is that? Well, let's say if you have debt you want to pay off, but you're trying to buy a house, but your debt to income ratio is just too high. When you move a debt from your creditors, credit card companies, whatever, to infinite banking, it also removes it from your credit report, thereby lowering your debt to income ratio. So kind of a cool little side thing there. With the loans, you control the loans. There is no minimum or maximum payment. There's no monthly invoice per se. You control how much and when you pay them back. All right. So you are the one in control of those loans. If you miss a payment, go look in a mirror because that's the person you got to answer to. There's nobody that's going to be calling you, right? I'm not calling you. The insurance company doesn't call you. They don't care. Okay. So you control the loans. So the loans are, once again, they're guaranteed, but it's in your hands. Okay. Now I'll kind of talk about how I can fund the infinite banking policy. This is a question we get quite a bit. So there's two ways you fund these policies. There is the premium deposit. That's going to be monthly. It's going to be quarterly. It's going to be annually. It's whatever you want. And you can change that in most cases during the life of the policy. Okay. What's the minimum you can put into this policy via a premium deposit? It's 10 times your age per month. If you're 40 years old, $400 per month or $4,800 per year. Pretty simple right there. The maximum depends on the individual. It's based upon your liquidity, your net worth, and also mainly your gross income. Okay. And that's different for everybody. So that's a number that we talk through with you on a call. So on top of those premium deposits, which are ongoing, typically for the first 7 to maybe 10 years, and then they can go down if you want or go to zero. So by the way, these are not things that you have to pay into for the rest of your life. You don't have to do that. And they don't go up. They actually go down. The premiums do. So you can fund it also with the policy with a large upfront called a dump in. So let's say you're doing a $10,000 premium and you want to do a $50,000 dump in. We can do that. Why? The dump ins, 90% approximately of those large dump ins go to the cash value that you can borrow against within the first 30 days. So it turns your money around really quickly. And then it gets the policy growing faster because there's more money in the policy, earning more dividends. And so the policy gets very efficient very quickly. So of the premium deposits and dump ins, anywhere from 50 to 90% goes to cash value within the first 30 days. Now that depends on structure, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff, which I can walk you through that. But yes, these are not policies where you've got to wait 3 years to use it. We want you using these things as fast as possible. So we're going to build it for whatever you're trying to accomplish. That's the fun thing about doing infinite banking is that it's not a one size fits all, right? It's going to be built for you. And let me also ask you a question. So some people look at this and say, oh, why does this make sense? Well, I already showed you on some of those illustrations, and I'll show you here in just a moment, but would you put $1 into something, a vehicle, in order to get $3 out? So give me a 1, give me a yes in the chat box if you would do that. Would you put $1 in to get $3 out? Yeah, Alvin says all day long. Yeah, of course we would, right? That's a great return on your money. So infinite banking eventually gets to that point where it's doing that like year over year over year. Okay. So let me show you an example of what that looks like. So this is a policy. So this is an annual premium of $10,000 per year, $50,000 dump in. It's a female age 32 standard rating. So in the first year, this person puts in $60,000. Okay. At the end of the first year, they have cash value of $55,535. Okay, that's a pretty good cash on cash return right there in the first year. At the exact same time, this person has $1.1 million of death benefit that would be guaranteed to be paid out if something happened in that first year. Now, here's the interesting thing about infinite banking. They go and borrow $50,000 from that $55,000 and they go put it into an investment that makes maybe, let's say, 15% return, okay? Over 6 months. They're going to make $7,000, something like that over the year. At the exact same time, nothing on this page or this illustration changes. Even though they borrowed from that $55,000, nothing changes here. You still get the same growth, same death benefit is still there. All that stuff is the same. It doesn't change it unless something happens, of course, but it doesn't change. But let's look at year 2. In year 2, this person puts in the second premium, so $10,000, At the end of the second year, cash value goes up by $10,607. They're already cash on cash positive. But let's go even further down the page. In year 11, remember how I said the premiums are decreasing oftentimes? That's an optional thing, by the way, but their premium goes down to $3,120 in year 11. In the same year, though, the cash value goes up by $10,590. So would you be willing to put in $3,000 into something like this and get over $10,000 of growth on your money that you can leverage and go do something else with? Like that's a very powerful concept right there to understand. You are getting a lot of return on your money, and that does not even include what you use the cash value for, because what you go use it for is the important thing: investing, building wealth, buying cars, whatever you're doing in addition to this. Okay? Now, this is a quote by Mr. Warren B. Buffett. I don't know if I quite like this one, but it's an interesting quote. And it says, if poor people would do or just do what rich people do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. Now, to a point, that's true. Not everybody can do what the rich do, but from a mindset perspective, you can do what they do, because you've got to change the way you think about money like they do. But infinite banking is an example of changing the way you think about money. So another question I get quite a bit is, why would I want to work with you, Brian? Okay, so I've been teaching infinite banking for around 7 or 8, I think it's 8 years now. It's been around for about 7 years. Here at the Money Multiplier, we have an entire team that works with you. Not just one person. We have myself, we have an application team that does the underwriting with you. We have an implementation team that works with you on an ongoing basis after the policy is in place. You're going to have ongoing support and someone to reach out to for anything you need. We have a concierge team that does all the software for you, and we charge nothing for that, by the way. We're one of the largest producers of infinite banking, which gives us some very unique resources at the insurance companies, by the way. I currently have well over 100 clients, I think, in underwriting right now. As I said, ongoing support, ongoing services. We do webinars like this. We do other ones on Wednesday where it's live. You can ask me questions and the other people on our team questions live about infinite banking and other things. And then we don't charge anything. There's no cost to you for what we do. So if you want to know how we get paid, I am very, very open about that. I show you exactly how we get paid, but you don't pay us anything directly. Yeah. All right, so great question there, Sean. So Sean said, why did the death benefit drop after a while? Okay, so this is, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but let me go back and I'll show you everybody else what he's talking about. So on this one, you'll see the death benefit drops from 1.2 down to 396 after year 7. So it drops down. Why it does that is something called the 7-year or 7-pay MEC test, which stands for Modified Endowment Contract. What that is an IRS ruling there where this cannot be abused. Like the life insurance policy cannot be abused. Not to get into the weeds, but let me explain to you really quickly what it does. It's a calculation based upon 7 years worth of premiums and also compared to the ratio of cash value versus death benefit. Bottom line is you cannot have too much cash value and not enough death benefit. Otherwise, the policy will become a MEC contract, which is a taxable investment. We never allow that to happen. So how we get around that and allow the policy to be very effective and do the large dump in is we do what's called a 7-year term rider for 7 years. A 7-year term policy is just death benefit. And so the death benefit increases for 7 years to abide by the 7-year MEC test. And then after year 7, we no longer need that term. We don't want to pay for it. We drop it off. So that's what it is. And I walk through that in more detail with you on a call, but that's what's happening right there. So it's high for the first 7 years, but that also allows us to have high cash value and have a very super efficient policy that gets even better and better down the road. So it makes the policy very good down the road too. So hopefully that explained that, Sean. Okay, so is IUL or VUL infinite banking? This is a question we get quite a bit, so I'm going to address it really quickly. The straight answer is no, it's not. IULs and term insurance, they pay some of the highest commissions out there, which, gee, I wonder why a lot of people promote them, right? There's a gentleman who always promotes it: buy term, invest the rest. You guys have probably heard of that, right? So that's always there. But here's the thing. Term insurance is the most profitable insurance, that I think that's the most profitable one that exists. So, gee, I wonder why that person promotes term insurance. Okay. So yeah, so IULs, term insurance, they are very high commission. We personally take about a 70% cut in commissions to do infinite banking. That's why a lot of agents don't do infinite banking, because they don't have the lead flow to do it, or they don't have the time to spend doing the illustrations and understanding how it works. So we do take a pretty big cut in commissions, but we make up for that in referrals and repeat clients. So that's why we do it. And then our team only does infinite banking. Okay, so that's all we do is infinite banking. Additionally, little side tangent here is an IUL. So why do IULs, which is called indexed universal life, exist? Because they are tied to the markets. They can fluctuate with the markets. They're complicated. They have fees. Okay. Additionally, almost every single IUL that I've talked to, their policy does not perform as good as the initial illustration. In fact, someone did a challenge to 1,000 people. If anybody could show an IUL in-force illustration that performed better than the original one that was given to them by the agent, they would give them $10,000. Nobody could do it. Nobody could show one that performed better than what it was projected to do. Additionally, back in the 80s, what came about? Well, the 401k. So let me ask you all a question here. Do you trust the IRS? Do you believe the IRS has your best interest at heart? Anybody want to say a yes to that one? I don't think so, right? Sean says no. Anybody else want to chime in? Do you believe the IRS is the best steward of your money? Anybody? So what does IRS section 401k mean? It's IRS, it's their code. So 401k is a IRS section code. I think that's what they call it, right? So if that's the case, if we don't trust the IRS, think they're the best interest with our money, yet we're putting money into a 401k, which is something that they've built and control, does that make sense? So a lot of us have I've had 401ks. A lot of us have them. But in reality, if we don't trust the IRS, do we trust our 401k? And that's up to you. I'm not giving financial advice here, anything like that. That's up to you. Now, back in the 80s, when the 401k came about, high interest. It was amazing, right? And so the insurance company said, hey, we need to compete against this thing. So what can we build to compete against a 401k? Along came the IUL. The IUL was built to compete against a 401k. And this is my opinion, by the way. It was built to compete against the 401k, which is a retirement vehicle that we just said we don't believe in because the IRS controls it. So why would we put our money in an IUL, which was meant to compete against the 401k? So that's where I kind of go with the IUL question. But we do 1035 exchanges. We can help people do those, which moves the cash value from one whole life policy to another. IULs are the most common one to get moved over because they're not performing, they're not happy, etc., or whatever it is. Okay. All right. So one of two things in life is going to happen, right? We know that one of two things in life is going to happen. We're either going to live, where to go, right? We're going to live and we're going to die. So when you think about that, those are going to happen. Are we better off with or without infinite banking in our lives when both of these scenarios are going to happen? Well, in my opinion, we're better off having this in place in our lives. It's going to help us tremendously. Okay. And by the way, guys, I just put the call link in the chat box one more time, brian@beyourownbanker.com right there. Now, I got a couple more slides and then we'll be good to go here. But I wanted to do a quick little story here. You guys may have seen me do this before, but it's the tale of two people. And whenever we are presented with an opportunity or we're challenged with the way we think about something like money, as an example, there's always kind of two people. And the group one is the one that says, I don't need anything, right? I don't need anything, right? I'm good to go, right? I don't want to learn something new. I want to just stay where I'm at. Most times those people are stuck. They may not know it, but they're stuck. They don't want to do anything different. They don't want to be, have any help. But here's the thing, in life, or in the US, I guess I'd say, wealth is always being transferred from one group to another group. It's always being transferred. Well, guess which group is being transferred from? Well, oftentimes group one, those people that just have their head in the sand, don't want to do anything different, just keep doing what they're doing, just keep saving money traditionally. They're going to get their wealth stripped away oftentimes. Then there's group two. And this is the group that I see that when they see things, they pay attention. When they see something different, they pay attention. And they're the ones that I call them, their eyes are open. And when they learn something new, they say, hey, can this help me or not? They're going to go into it. They're going to learn about how this can help. They're going to evolve because they want to always be improving. They have a very open mindset, by the way. That's the biggest difference, is they have a very open mindset, and they always understand limiting beliefs. And so when they see something like infinite banking as an example, they're saying, hey, this is something new. This is something that the wealthy are doing. Let me learn more about this. Okay. So I always call it group one is go it alone. Whereas group two, let's hop on a call. If you're part of group two, let's solve your problems. Let's hop on a call. Let's answer some questions. There's no obligations, no commitments, nothing like that. Let's just see if infinite banking is a fit for you. Let's just go ahead and do that. Okay. So once again, guys, go to brian.beyourOwnbanker.com. And then I'm going to end with this quote here because I love this quote, and it probably makes a bit more sense now that we went through the presentation. But the problem in America isn't so much what people don't know. It's what people think they know that just is not so. All right. Let me see if we have any other questions here. Okay. Alvin said, does the 7-year term policy, is it a separate policy from the whole life policy with the same mutual company? So it's actually built inside the infinite banking policy. Yeah, so these companies, they are proponents of infinite banking. So the 7-year term is built to allow us to abide by the MEC test with a infinite banking policy. So yeah, so it's part of the structure. Yeah, so it's built inside of it. Vlad said, yes. So yeah, they do send out a recording of this, and I think they put it on the YouTube channel as well, on Chris's YouTube channel, Chris Naugle YouTube. So it'll be there as well. So yeah, and I believe that they do send out an email with the recording, so you'll have that as well. But yeah, if you want to share it with people, that's one thing I do recommend, is that a lot of us have heard about this before. We learned about it, but we've heard about it. And we heard about it from somebody else, or we've heard somebody else mention it. But if you have anybody that would benefit from this or looking to learn more, send them this recording, this presentation, because I've had a lot of people who have watched this and said, hey, this was and I'm not gloating, but they said it was a better explanation of infinite banking than they've heard before. So it can really help a lot of people understand it, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There honestly is. I have so many clients come to me and say, yeah, I tried to go to X, Y, and Z company and get a policy, and they said that you can't do that. You can't have cash value in the first 3 years. And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely we're trying to share the message as much as possible. And then someone up here, I think somebody mentioned their son works at Alliance Insurance Company, whom I know who that company is. Where'd it go? Well, I can't see, but if you're still on, yeah, feel free to go ahead and put that comment back in. I lost that one, but someone said about their son works with Alliance Insurance Company. I'm not sure what the question was, real quick. Okay, guys. Yeah. So, and by the way, if I didn't answer any questions, or if you got other questions that come up after the presentation, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to me via my email. I'll put it in the chat box one more time before we part ways here. Okay, I didn't find that. I didn't find that note. Oh, there it's right here. Okay, okay, that's from Abby. My son has it's not works at Alliance. They have an IUL with Alliance that I'm currently paying monthly, and can dump up to 20K annually if able to. Can we change it to this type of policy? So Abby, potentially. I don't know until I look at it, but you could, and if it makes sense. Now, you can dump that amount in because of the way the policy is structured, most likely. But I'd have to look at it to see if it makes sense to move it over, and then see how efficient it is with where it's at right now. But the one question I have is Alliance Insurance a mutual company? I don't know if Alliance is a mutual. I don't think they're a mutual insurance company. So if they're not a mutual company, they can't even do infinite banking. But I can't. I'm looking real quick online, but I can't see there. Thanks, friend. I appreciate that. Abby said no. Please go back there. So did I answer your question, Abby? Hope I did. Jeff said not. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, so I got it. Okay, cool. Aaron asked a question here. Do you know if you can make payments to become a Nelson Nash practitioner? I think it's 4,000 total. Yes. So you have to. So to become a Nelson Nash practitioner, which is certified by the Nelson Nash Institute, I think is what you're talking about. There's two things. You can become a licensed life insurance person and do infinite banking. That's just getting your license and then knowing how to do it. To be certified by Nelson Nash Institute, it's I think it's a couple $1,000, and you're interviewed, you've got to be accepted, you got to go through the training, and then you got to take the exam and be certified. So, and that's something that all of us here at the Money Multiplier are going through. We're going through that process. So hopefully that makes sense. But I'm not quite sure if you meant to be an infinite banking practitioner or specifically a Nelson Nash certified practitioner. They're different. Yeah, thanks, friend. Appreciate that. Not mutual. Okay, yeah. So Yeah, so that Alliance, if they're not a mutual company, they can't do infinite banking. They can't. Yeah, so because now I say that because you're not going to get dividends. It doesn't mean you don't have cash value. You can have cash value with some of those companies, but they're not going to be paying you dividends, which is essentially growing your policy compounded, which is sort of the banking function right there. That's if you don't have that as part of it, then it's not going to be the same thing. Yeah, I didn't know they're based in Germany. Abby, so schedule a call with me and we can look. I don't know until we look at the IUL that you have. Maybe yes, maybe no. So yeah, so we just have to look at it is all. And so I'll put my email address here just one more time, and then also my call link right there as well. So yeah, so just grab that time there and grab a time. And if there's no times that work for you, just send me an email and we can work something out as well. So I'm pretty open. And I think Sean, I already see you on my calendar. I already see you there. And then okay, there's David right there. So Sean, I see you on my calendar twice, by the way, today and tomorrow. So if you want to let me know which one is the one you want to stick with, I'll remove the other one. Okay, guys, that's all I got. If you guys have any other last minute questions, let me know. Otherwise, here in about 7 minutes, I'm going to hop on a big team call for the Money Multiplier. And we're going to go through kind of some of the cool things we're doing, what we're building for people. Cheryl asked, why do you mean by if it makes sense? Why would it not make sense? So great question, Cheryl. So to roll, it's called a rollover, 1035 exchange. So if you want to do the exchange, it has to make sense. So here's just from the heart. It has to make sense and be in the best interest of the client. If it's not, I'm not going to tell them to do it. And so when you're putting money towards a policy like infinite banking or put money towards a policy, you're going to have death benefit. You're going to have other efficiencies. If that policy is already efficient, I'm going to tell them that, because you'd lose the efficiency when you move it over to infinite banking. Now, it might just make sense that it depends on what Cheryl's putting into it, but it might just make sense to stop doing the policy and do another one that's infinite banking focused. But really, what I will ask is, what are we trying to accomplish here? What's the problem, the challenge, the situation we're trying to solve with infinite banking? The same thing with an IUL. Why do you have an IUL? Like, I'm going to ask someone who has an IUL, they come to me and say, hey, Brian, I got this IUL. My first question is why? Why do you have it? What's the purpose of it? What are we solving with it? So sometimes people don't have a reason. They were just sold an IUL or whatever by their financial advisor, right? And they didn't really need it. I've had that happen many times to clients, and they're saying, yeah, I don't know why I have it. My advisor said I should. Well, that's really not a thing I would promote. So that's kind of why. Okay, so yeah, so I'll just remove the one for tomorrow then. Cool, thanks. So Lillian, it is funded through, so like there's different insurance companies that do infinite banking. So it's not funded. So it's just an insurance company that is mutual. So there's companies we work with. So One America, Lafayette, Mass Mutual used to do them. New York Life does them. I'm doing one right now with Security Mutual for a client. So those are the companies that we do it with. When you borrow from your policy, it's funded through the insurance company's general account. But keep in mind, only 2% of people that have policies with these companies are doing loans. So it's not a very small amount or big amount. Okay, so Aaron, so there's no payments to become an infinite banking practitioner, Aaron. There are what am I trying to say? The licensing fees. So that's going to be state specific. So if you have to get a license, you have to buy a certificate course or training course. I think it's about $100, maybe $200. I use a company called Kaplan to do it. But yeah, you would just go on to your state's insurance website to see what that is. But if you're already an agent, then there's no cost per se to become a practitioner. You just got to have the knowledge and the access to do it. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Lillian asked, are these companies FDIC insured? I hope not, because that means the federal government is involved in them, and I do not want that. So no, they are not. And this is an opinion. Do you believe the FDIC is going to cover all your deposits if all the banks go under? Well, they couldn't, by the way. They don't even have that much capital. So the FDIC is there as a safety net for some people, but man, I don't really believe in it all that much, because they just paid everybody out with Silicon Bank that went under last year, I think it was, or however long ago it went under. They paid every deposit holder their money. That's scary, because they drained their coffers. They did not even abide by their own rules, which is the $250,000 limit. They went above that. So they can't even follow their own guidelines. I mean, it's such a mess, such a mess.